Good morning, everybody. I'm Betsy DeWitt, and I welcome all to the League of Women Voters discussion on how to use OpenGov on the town website. Several weeks ago, we discussed the Brookline's 32 million plus or minus funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, which is abbreviated as ARPA. We had a number of questions and we're told that OpenGov was the way to track the allocation of that money. And I'm hoping with luck, not just that, but other things we might want to know about our local government. So we have speakers, Melissa Goff, Deputy Town Administrator, who actually was the one who explained ARPA to us, and her colleague, Justin Casanova-Davis, who are going to help us understand how to use OpenGov. So I welcome everybody and I request that you make it possible for some of us who have not actually totally accustomed ourselves to learning everything either by going online or doing things remotely. So I'm hoping that Melissa and Justin will give us everything we need to know about how OpenGov works and how we will be able to learn what we want to know about our Brookline town government. And therefore, I pass the speaker platform on to our speakers, Melissa or Justin, whoever wants to be first. You guys must have worked that out.
Thanks, Betsy. Justin and I are going to do this as a team.
Okay.
So I thought, after we had the session on ARPA, you and I had talked about just kind of a general overview of what OpenGov is, what we use it for, how it works with our budget. And then we thought we would just hop into the site that we've created for ARPA so that people could kind of understand how it's currently organized. I will say I do have a stop at 10 because I have to go to a briefing on the tropical storm. But I think,
Right.
I think we can get through that pretty quickly though. And Justin is actually going to be pulling up the site. So we primarily use OpenGov as our budgeting tool. So we use it to facilitate requests with departments. When we put the budget out, you can navigate to our budget site by clicking on Budget Central from the homepage. And then within the budget files that we have here, our fiscal 22 interactive budget is actually done in OpenGov. And so for those of you who are familiar with our printed book, if you click on the PDF, which is the budget book link on the left-hand side there, it'll show you the whole budget kind of put together in the same format that people are used to getting it through the mail. But if you're looking at the interactive version, you can click in the various sections and come back and forth. We thought it would probably be best to show you a departmental budget, and Justin's going to talk a little bit about how it's organized, how you can kind of get a little bit more information by clicking, drilling deeper into the budget using the OpenGov tool. So go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So as Melissa was saying, all those links on that preceding page that are on the right-hand side, you can drill down into what you're trying to get into. So for this example, we're in the select board budget. And here in the select board budget, just like in our budget book, you have the program description, you have objectives and accomplishments. You'll have this budget line item report that you can drill into, and we'll do that in a minute. But also just want to let people know all these, as you can see on my cursor, as you put the cursor over, you can see that it's something that's clickable. A lot of these charts in here are clickable. They can be delved into a little bit deeper, except for this one here. But this is a performance indicator, and you can see that you can't do that with the mouse there. But I'll dive into the budget line item report. And this is something that, Melissa, myself, and our friends on the advisory committee, we delve into this budget line item report quite a bit. And so what it represents is fiscal year 20 actuals, and that data is here, fiscal year 21 budget and fiscal year 22 budget. Just for general information for people, you can play around with different views here, whether you like a pie chart, breaks down percentage of what's going on in the budget. For example, in our select board budget, 97% is salaries and so forth. So you can see this kind of data here. Just toggling with these various charts and lineups. I'm a pie graph person, so I'll just leave that there for now. And this presents sort of a summarized view of all this information that's in the department, but we really are big on transparency. And what we love about this is that you can expand this all and really dive deeper to see, this information. So I expand this all, you can see, we have permanent, full-time, we've got, offsets, et cetera. So that's what diving into this budget line item report avails you to, this information here. And so that's the select board. This is something else that people don't realize. Yes, you can go from here to these various departments, human resource and so forth. But actually, when you're in this section of OpenGov, if you scroll down, you can get to all that information here. You can go to HR. We've put in here a listing of all the information that's available to you. So you can see this list is pretty exhaustive. You can go directly to various divisions. You want to check up on our golf course and see what they're doing over there. I see some of my friends who are some avid golfers that I know are in this meeting. You can go into your revenue section, revenue sections. All this information is here. So once you're here, this is where you can get a lot of that information that you can either click here to or just be there and get that information. Sorry, that's in my way. So.
Justin, why don't you show how you can also, for those of you who, may not like it displayed on the screen, if you want to pull it down into Excel, that's another feature that you can do as well, if you're more comfortable kind of looking at the information in Excel.
Right. Bear with me. I'm going to make this a little smaller because my share is blocking what I can see here. But
I have a question that
go ahead.
is related to connecting back to the ARPA. This is the approved financial plan. Theoretically, the ARPA funds are additional funding from different sources. And I know from my own research, some of them are specifically targeted for certain types of uses. So can you help us understand when and how that information will be added? And, I'm sure it will be comparable to what I see there, but how will that look? What will it be called?
So we're going to be building reports once we actually have, requests in the system, and the tool will function in the same way that we use it for the budget. So there'll be some clickable reports that people will be able to go in and do the same kind of thing that Justin has just shown. And so, go ahead, Justin.
Go ahead, Melissa. No, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, Melissa and I thought this was a good example because a lot of those reports, there's another portal for that ARPA, sort of those projects that Melissa will talk about, but they're coming from the same platform. So it's always good to see this because this is the information, this is the manner in which that information is going to be presented in terms of line item reports and reporting. So we'll get there, but let me just show you something real quick as well, because all of this information that is here, you can export that data. And it's by clicking the share button, you can some people like Excel spreadsheets. If you want all this data in Excel, you got an option there for that. If you want to take certain images, you can do that. I'll do a quick demo of that. I won't do the spreadsheet because it gets sent to your email. It's just a regular Excel. But if you click the image option, you've got various options. You can either have, while it loads, you can have the chart and table. You can have just, if you want to see that pie graph, if you just want to see the table, you can decide what it is that you want to do, and it will give you that information going that route. So this is an important button here. If you want to dive in deeper, want to do different charts, a lot of our advisory committee members like to go into the share.
And especially, some of the, displays may not be big enough for some people. So if you exported it to a PDF, you'll be able to zoom on that and see the numbers, in a bigger format. So that might also be good for people as well. So that's a basic overview of kind of how the tool works. And we can either take a few questions here, or we can go into the ARPA site so you can see how that's organized and then where the reporting will be.
So we've encouraged people to put questions in the chat, which is at the bottom of the screen. I don't see anything there right now. And if you have a verbal question, because we're being offered that option, there is, you'll have to unmute yourself and identify yourself, and we can take a question from the audience. And if I see none, then I would say,
Can I ask a question,
whoops,
Betsy?
wait a minute, there's a question. Kaya.
So I'm just, yeah, this is probably not very important, but the salaries, that includes all the benefits as well, right?
So the benefits are in the health insurance budget, so that's just purely salaries.
Oh, that's separate. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I mean, it's retirement and health and all that.
They're all separate line items within the budget. So the salaries are just the department FTEs, the total for those departments.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Then I would say, Melissa and Justin, you have the screen and the floor.
Sure. So the next place that we're going to go is our ARPA site, and I'll actually share my screen for this one. So this site is what OpenGov also provides what's called stories, and stories are just a fancy way of saying additional web pages. And so our budget platform is built on our budget story, and our CIP has the project descriptions on the CIP story. So this is our story for American Rescue Plan funding, and we launched this with the board a couple of weeks ago at their meeting, so that people who may not have been able to go to some of the demos that we've had that we did for the ULES a couple of weeks ago, and then also at the board, kind of to get a better understanding of, American Rescue Plan and what the rules are, and kind of what the information that we know. This site will be the repository for, anytime we have any information on American Rescue Plan, we're going to be making sure that, we're putting it here. So if we do a presentation for the board, you'll find that that presentation will be linked here, shortly thereafter. So I encourage people to, visit the site and see kind of, what we have so far, and then use it to stay up to date with what we're doing with the funds. So this beginning part just provides an overview of the act, and then a summary of some of the information about the funds. This gives us our specific information about Brookline's allocation. So, what we've been awarded, what has actually come in. We've received 16 million so far. And then the potential for Norfolk County funding. And we've heard from the county, there'll be a meeting at some point soon where they'll be telling us what their process is, because they will be administering this $11.4 million as well. Then just some additional information about the categories on use. So we discussed this at the presentation a couple of weeks ago, to respond to COVID, for, premium pay, for revenue reduction, and then water, sewer, and infrastructure as well. So this is a new tool that we're playing around with within this site. OpenGov has a kind of a participatory feature called Open Town Hall, which is a survey tool, and then also some of this feature here is part of what we're getting from that module, is the budget challenge. So essentially, it allows you to play around with how you would take $100 and allocate it within the various categories. So if you click on the categories, it opens up and gives some additional information. So you could, kind of use this just to play around and see, how you would distribute the funds if you were the one making the decisions. If there are categories that you don't see here, but you want to express that you think that these are things that the town should be looking at, this box here is where you can provide additional information. And so one of the things that we really liked about this feature here is that there's analytics on the back end that's going to allow us to kind of pull like popular key terms and kind of crowdsource what, some of these responses are going to be. And so we think this is kind of a low lift way for people to, express priorities without actually, maybe you're not someone that has a specific project, but you want the town to kind of see what you're thinking about in terms of where you think, if you can't show up to a public meeting, you could use this form to say, I think it should be done for X, Y, and Z. And that will be part of the information that we're looking at as we're, rolling out a community engagement strategy. So this is just a small piece in that overall strategy as well. And so then this coming soon, this is where you're going to be finding the reports. And so once we have some data in the system, we're going to be showing the requests as they come in, basically in the categories. So if someone's requesting it under, COVID related, or if they're requesting it under revenue replacement, we'll have a report. And once we have additional data, we'll be able to kind of build multiple reports, and they'll all be kind of housed within this space here. This additional resource section here, this is basically, some good information that we've received from our professional associations, the actual information from the Treasury website as well. And then we have a few different memos that we've already presented to the board that we're housing here as well. So this will probably grow this space within the site. And then this last piece here is, after you
Melissa,
I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. Before we go there, I just saw a couple of questions before we go there that might make sense to think. One, there was a question about the Norfolk allocation is above and beyond the $32 million. The answer is yes. The $32 million is directly to the town. The Norfolk allocation is towards the county itself. So that is a separate allocation. So yes, above and beyond. I think there was a question about the survey, the budget challenge that you mentioned, Melissa. One of the question was, what will you do? How will you use the data you collect on this survey? I think this is a good one for you to address before we jump to the next part of it.
So I think that would be part of the information that we present to the board when we get requests. So, like a public hearing provides the board with a certain level of feedback from the community. I think that, this feature also would be able to provide another layer for the board as they consider projects.
All right. And Mike Toffel had a question, and then there was a question about what are possible other uses. I don't know when you sent that question, Anita, but I think it possibly was when discussing the different buckets of funding. Did we cover that, Melissa, where we did the premium pay, the COVID expenditures, revenue loss, and the water, sewer, broadband infrastructure. Yeah. Other uses, revenue loss, that's where you have a little more flexibility that the government has allowed us to utilize that funding. So other uses, it could be quite broad. We've been talking about it, using it innovatively, making sure we're sort of focusing that this is sort of a one-time expenditure of funds. We wouldn't try to be utilizing this for operating expenses. I don't know if you want to add anything else to that, Melissa, but I think that's a good explanation. Yep.
So can I ask my question, Justin?
Right, Mike.
Oh,
Mike,
thank you.
You're up.
Okay, thank you. This is Mike Toffel, town meeting member from Precinct 8. Thank you for doing this presentation. A quick question on, I love the idea of getting feedback from the community, but I think this, like, how would you allocate 100 points? Like, I understand what you're trying to do, but I'm not sure that's the most effective way of getting feedback from the community, because I know the select board and other bodies have specific projects in mind, and they all have pros and cons. And I wonder if it'd be more useful to list out, like, what are the actual projects in contention, and then get feedback on those particular projects, because I think that would give you a lot more useful information than just how would you allocate 100 points. Thanks.
I agree. And I think once we have submissions that we'll be able to do that. One of the other things that we can do with this particular feature is actually turn on a button that will allow people to register. So we actually know where in the community the statements are coming from. At this point, we haven't turned it on, but if it's something that we feel like we need kind of that layer of information, that's something that we look at as well. The survey features within OpenGov, I think we're looking to explore that as well too. And we're also talking to the Community Foundation about community engagement as well. They're gonna be helping us with that. We've had a couple of productive conversations so far, and we'll be talking more about it at the board meeting on the 31st as well.
So-
Great, thank you. Can you just clarify who makes the decisions? Is this a select board decision, a town meeting decision, a staff decision? Who actually decides?
So the way that we framed it is the board will be making the decisions, but there are certain expenditure categories that we feel that we need to make sure that we have authority from the board to spend. So anything that's specifically related to COVID. So if some emergency happened and we needed to set up a testing site or, buy some PPE, we need to be able to do those things relatively quickly. So we'll likely be kind of putting a specific allocation behind what we think would be needed to kind of carry us through COVID response as well.
Follow up, Melissa. What I remember from your ARPA discussion with us earlier is there are some time limits on the use of some of these funds. Can you just quickly summarize that for us?
So the funds have to be obligated by 2024 and fully spent by 26. And so, we've got kind of a 4-year time period to utilize the funding.
Thank you.
One other thing before Melissa shows you the portal request is that budget challenge is, just like Melissa said, we realize that's not just the only part of community engagement. That's just one part of the tool, because what Melissa's going to show you, there's an opportunity to submit requests for proposals. But for some people who may not want to submit a project request and doesn't have an idea, it's a quick way for them to just say, I think this is what the priorities of the town should be in these general buckets, but that's not the end all be all. And those requests that come through, where that coming soon is going to come from this portal link that Melissa is going to show you in a second.
So there'll be, we have the portal for requests at the bottom of the site kind of intentionally, so that at least people can read some of the information. I don't expect that everyone's going to read everything that's out there, but hopefully the people that are submitting formal requests have a good sense of kind of what the rules are around the Treasury guidance and the reporting that's required in order to be a subrecipient for ARPA requests. So this is the actual portal that people would use to submit their requests. And so you would hit apply online. Justin and I did, I don't have my login right now, so I'm gonna, I'll go back here and just say that we have a training video that's coming soon that the training video actually goes through each of the features of how to apply, but it's actually pretty straightforward. And it's essentially asking you to indicate what category you're applying under, indicate if you're picking a category that's COVID related or responding to negative economic impact, kind of some of the things that we need in terms of being able to demonstrate, what the project's intending to do and how you'll measure whether or not that's effective. It will be where you submit project statements. Project statements should be somewhere in the range of 50 to 250 words, and just some other basic information as well. So that will be coming up soon, but I would definitely encourage everyone to just go to the ARPA site and just look for updates there. And then obviously we'll be keeping the board updated through the regular meetings on this as well.
I think Naomi had a question.
Naomi Schweitzer, where are you?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thanks so much, Melissa and Justin, for the second presentation. And I know we've been in conversation and just wanted to say thank you for your efforts to work with the Community Foundation, who I believe is here this morning. I saw Giselle from the foundation in the chat box. So excited about that effort to get some community outreach going, to get broader input. And Melissa, you had said a moment ago about the ability with any surveying tools to be able to understand like where the information is coming from and be able to turn that on. And that's definitely something that I would support. I think it's important to know where the feedback is coming from, and I would encourage us wherever we can to ask for demographics, so we understand what voices are at the table, and are giving input on how the funds should be used, so that the board and the community has a clear picture of where the input is coming from and who's speaking up, so we can make sure that we're getting a lot of good voices at the table, because so much of this money is supposed to be directed towards folks who've been disproportionately impacted by COVID. So really wanting to make sure that we're seeing that those voices are coming to the table and influencing how we're deciding how the money is spent.
Yeah, I think, you know, we'd likely turn that feature on maybe once we start publishing some of the project requests. I think for now, it's kind of good to have people just kind of express kind of general priorities. But then when we have more specifics, I think it makes sense to do that.
There's for people who are watching, you can look at the chat, and there's a lengthy comment from Giselle from the Community Foundation, which you might want to read. I'm not going to read it out loud, but she's addressing some of the thoughts that have been expressed. Anyway, Melissa, do you have to leave now? Is that what I understood?
I have a briefing at 10, yes. I'll hang on for another, I'll be a little bit late. I'll hang on for 5 more minutes if there are
Okay,
questions.
that's great. Because it really is, this is a topic that is likely to generate more questions over time as people have an opportunity to think a little bit about what they've heard and then think, oh, then what are we supposed to do about this or that? And I do truly appreciate the fact that now there is the special online way of addressing the ARPA funds. I think people will really try to use it and learn from it. And I don't know yet right now, but what I understood on the website is a place where people can leave their questions, right? So if you go there and you say, I couldn't find something or I'm unclear, you can still leave a question. Is that correct?
So that free form in the budget challenge is where
Yeah.
you can put additional comments.
Right. Okay. Okay. So Donna,
Yeah.
sorry.
Betsy, I was just going to acknowledge Donna's question.
Okay.
The question is, there's a response that a requester receives acknowledging receipt of a request. The answer to that, Donna, is yes. And something that we actually like is when you send in a request, when you send in a project proposal, you'll get a prompt, an email confirmation that your project has been received, but that you'll also be able to see how it's progressing through the process. There's a little box on the left you can check on your project requests. On the training video that Melissa mentioned earlier, we highlight where you'll see you can keep track of project requests and actually send a message or with a question or something when you have a question for that project. So yes.
Thank you. I'm very impressed with all the work that went into this. It's highly comprehensive, and I understand it's a work in progress. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And I will just simply say, as someone who's followed the town budget for God knows more years than I care to admit, this is a very helpful, useful tool available broadly to the public, which we've not had before. And I do believe that it is a precedent setting, and I hope there'll be ways to go forward, not just with the way the ARPA fund is being tracked, but also the information that's now being available for the town budget. I'm thinking of in the budget development process way back when all of the components are being assembled in the same way that uses for the ARPA funds will now be able to be addressed.
I have to run in a second. So just in going off that one, there was a request to read Giselle's comment. Maybe once Melissa and I go, you read the comment so
Sure.
It can be reflect there. But Melissa and I have spent a lot of time together during doing budgets. We work very closely, but we're very excited about this ARPA project. It's a great opportunity for the town, opportunity to look to do some things innovatively. So we're excited to do this. Melissa, when she came back from the previous meeting, she was like, I had a great meeting talking with this group and I had to join her too. So we're really excited about this process.
Well, I will have to say, this is a very engaged group that normally attends these events. And I'll read Melissa's comments, Giselle's comments. But what I really want to do, since Melissa and Justin have to leave us now, is thank you very much. Your explanation about ARPA before was very helpful and very instructive. This is giving us the tools to monitor as things develop. And I think maybe it will also provide some lessons in budget building that may become useful tools for us in other contexts as we go forward, just around the town budget and how funding is being allocated. But we really appreciate the fact that you have identified, well, first of all, that you found it, that you put it on the town's website. And we're all obviously now going to spend some time playing with OpenGov and learning how to use the ARPA component. So thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate both of your contributions. And we know where to find you if we have some more follow-up questions.
Great. Thank you all very much. It is a work in progress, and, bumping the tires and testing it out is something that, we encourage as well.
Excellent.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks much. Okay, so I will now read Giselle's comments. She's the director of the Community Foundation. She says, as Melissa mentioned earlier, the Brookline Community Foundation is working on a plan for a more robust, comprehensive community engagement to collect feedback and input into the priorities for ARPA fund spending. We will submit that plan to Mel, Melissa, and the select board for consideration. We're also considering providing those who want to submit proposals for ARPA funds, I assume. The Community Foundation would be prepared to provide technical assistance support. So that was the comment from Giselle and the Brookline Community Foundation. Okay, people. At this stage, I guess it's really comments from anyone who wishes to make one, because we've lost our question answer qualified, the people who are qualified to answer the questions. But if somebody would like to speak, let's see.
Yeah, I have a question. If that's all
Sure.
right.
Sorry. Oh, there you are, Clara.
Hi, I'm Clara. I work with Debbie at the Brookline Chamber. I'm the Communications and Operations Manager. And I don't know if I missed this in the presentation, but I'm a little unclear on just the logistical details of submitting a proposal. Like, when are the proposals due? What are the questions and things you need to include in your proposal? What's the timeline of getting the funding? Does anyone know that information?
Don't think that was entirely made clear, but what I do know is that the funding has, there's a 2-year time limit on allocation of the funds. So there's got to be a period, presumably over the next 9 months, plus or minus, to submit proposals. I didn't see, but maybe on the ARPA website, there will be in fact, I think Melissa mentioned on the ARPA website, there is a way to identify a project or proposal that they will then be able to see. So I would recommend that you look at the OpenGov and particularly the ARPA site to get more information about that. But based on sort of experience, I'm going to argue that proposals will have to be reviewed and accepted over the next 8 or 9 months in order for the decision-making and spending to fit within the ARPA guidelines. Bearing in mind, you should look at the website again because of the categories for which the funds may be used, and that's important. So just, be aware, you want to make sure that whatever you're proposing is is an acceptable proposal. Okay, Giselle says, I believe the portal is open. Proposals can be submitted, but the select board has to determine the priorities for spending within categories of eligible uses. So I hope that helps a little bit, Clara. Any other questions?
I step in? I just wrote a comment there, but wasn't sure if
Oh yeah, sure. Carolina, go ahead, speak.
I'll turn my camera on so folks can see who I am here. No, I just want to give a quick comment for the ones who don't know me, that I'm the community engagement strategist for the town. And a lot of the work that I'm doing is really training the departments to activate community engagement. So I'm more focused within the town. And one of the things we did was to actually had a meeting with them. And so I just want to tell you, like, if you have suggestions, if you want to connect with me, feel free to reach out. If you think that there is an organization or a group that is important for me to build the relationship and then bring it to the town, because I'm in the process, I don't know everybody, so I'm really asking for help. I cannot do the work alone. I am activating the departments to really push them to have their community engagement agendas, but it's very challenging to do it alone. I think this is a good example of something that is promising, but yeah, I just, want to say I'm here. Please reach out. Let's brainstorm. Let's push these things forward. I do some outreach here and there, and I'll definitely, let folks know about this. But like on this week, like next week, we're going to BHA and all. But I feel like this is like a team effort. So I'm just asking for all of your help for us to really, really get the word out there to the community.
And Carolina, just to be clear, you're talking about the specifics of ARPA funding at this time, but I understand you have a broader mission, which is to promote community engagement and engagement across the town around many different kinds of issues. Right.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm saying no,
Okay,
for
not just
everything.
ARPA.
Yeah, definitely
and
not just
everything else.
ARPA. No, I'm here just for this, but I feel like there's so much that we need to do in town. But the focus
Sure.
now is ARPA for this department, but each department has a different agenda. So I'm just taking the opportunity for the ones who are watching and you guys here for us to, collaborate.
Good.
So can I make a comment in response? Thank you for introducing yourself. Again, Mike Toffel, town meeting member, precinct 8. I think the town meeting members, many of them are eager to sort of help you do that job because they have lots of networks in the community, sometimes have community meetings and can collect community input on the priorities or on particular ideas. So I would encourage you to reach out to the town meeting members as a potential free assistance in delivering on your mission. The second thing I wanted to say is particularly with ARPA, I'm a little hesitant about the way that we're currently structuring the feedback, which is to say, sort of tell us your own priorities, because I don't think that's actually going to be meaningful feedback, because, how is anyone supposed to know whether the sewers should get money versus the schools? Like, they just don't have the.
Mike, I think you've hit some sort of a technical glitch. Your voice has disappeared. Sorry.
Ooh, apparently.
But I think we got your point. Okay, are you back with us?
Yeah, sorry. I think I'm back with you. Sorry, I hit a Wi-Fi glitch. So with regard to the ARPA in particular, I don't think asking people, should we invest in sewers or schools is a very meaningful thing. So I really, and we only get to ask people so many times for feedback. So I would really encourage you to find out from the select board, who I guess is the decider in this case, according to what we heard earlier, like what feedback would actually be useful to them, since they're the receiver of the feedback, and then structure the questions that we ask to help them make a better decision. So it's more like, let's look at the demand side for feedback, not just the supply side of what would you like. That's just my 2 cents about the process. Thank you.
Thank you. And for those who were not with us when we heard about ARPA in the beginning, and I urge you to look at the website, there are some specific categories and strings attached to some of that funding. So it's it does have guidelines as to where the money may be used. Debbie Miller, you had your hand up, and then Naomi, you would follow her.
Thanks, Betsy, and thanks for doing this. This is very helpful. 2 things. I just wanted to reach out to Carolina and let you know that we would Clara and I'll speak for both of us, would be happy to help you share information if it's pertinent to the business community. We're always getting information out. We're happy to help you do that. And then also, just to build on what Clara said earlier, those of us who are going to be applying for funding do need some clear understanding of exactly what the expectations are in terms of detail. So if there could be some kind of a workshop, perhaps, in that regard, that would be very appreciated.
Thank you. And Naomi.
Thanks, Betsy. I think just building off some of what Mike Toffel was saying, and then also what Giselle was saying in the chat, and especially since I think she's in a place where she can't come off mute, is the town is working to partner with the Community Foundation to gather community input and do some community engagement work to help set priorities and understand where the select board might want to take this. And I think Mike is right. I think there are probably some projects maybe in the pipeline, and some select board members who are here, I know there are some that are here today, may already have, things in mind, but I think a collective decision hasn't been made yet. And so doing a community engagement process to help understand what the priorities are first, I think is going to be really important and helpful. And I think part of what we're seeing here is the funding's here, and the US Treasury, which put out the funding, has some expectations. And so the select board and town staff are building things and getting ready. And so there's kind of multiple layers going on at the same time. So this is an incredible opportunity. And I'm really excited to see what the foundation is able to help with the engagement process to help set the priorities.
Thank you. Okay, we have a request for contact information for Justin and Melissa, which we can certainly provide. And I think that was the last question I saw. So I would suggest that unless there are other people who would like to make comments, by which you must raise your hand. Let's see, Clara, do you have another? Clara?
Yes. Sorry. Giselle said that the select board hasn't determined the priorities for spending within each category, and I understand that that's going to depend on the community engagement efforts that are made in the next few months, but I just had another question about the timeline of that, because I think the way that people apply for certain funds depends on how the funds are allocated. So I was just curious if anyone had any more information about that.
Sorry, I'll unmute myself for a second. I think I can. Hi, I'm Giselle of Brookline Community Foundation. As Mel referenced, I have been in a couple of conversations with her and Mel, and the plan, there's a loose timeline right now, but what we're thinking about is drafting a community engagement plan that can gather that more robust input into priorities. We're going to submit that plan for the select board's consideration at the end of August. So August 30th or 31st is their next meeting. And then post that, pretty quickly go into execution of that feedback. I really do think, just for the outcomes of gathering robust input, and not only the foundation executing that plan, but doing so in partnership with others. So I could see us working with our grantees, our partners, of course, the town, as well as Debbie, we could also work with the chamber, like a lot of different groups, where, as well as, sorry, Carolina, we can also work with you and your team and your office to be able to together, I think, as you mentioned, this is a collective effort to gather that input. I'll also share that what I see as a sort of key outcome of that community engagement plan is to be able for the foundation to gather that input from a broad section of the community, roll it up into some sort of synthesis or deliverable report that we can hand over to the town and the select board and say, these are the insights, this is the feedback, this is the input that the community has shared around ARPA funding within those eligible uses. And then I don't know the timeline. So I wish I could be more specific, but I don't know the timeline by which the select board will confirm those priorities. My guess is it's sometime in the fall. I know they want to do so urgently because they have received that first part of the funding already. Anything I would say would be a guess, but I know the engagement process will be around September, October, maybe going into November. And we would also offer some technical assistance support for groups and organizations looking to submit. So in terms of what I would do, so I'll just speak for the Community Foundation. We would also be interested in submitting a proposal ourselves, but I know that I will likely hold back until I get that community input so that I can see what the select board's priorities are and hopefully then make a more sort of compelling, competitive proposal once I see that. So again, that's just what I would do, not necessarily recommending that for anyone else. So hopefully that shares a little bit more.
Can I suggest that as you proceed, we might, as the league, be happy to offer and encourage a kind of update as to where things are. Could be just after you present to the select board or just before you present to the select board, but it would be nice to be able to spread that information through our network as well.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, Paul Harris, you have your hand up. Paul, you still interested in commenting?
I am. Thank you. Sorry,
Okay.
it took me
Turn
a
yourself-
while to find myself on the screen, but
Yeah, I know. You had to find yourself.
here I am, delighted to be here and to hear all the comments from everyone. And this is a wonderful system. I'm so glad to see this kind of a transparent system. And the ARPA money is enough money so that it really makes a difference and really is a good way for us to use this system. I've enjoyed all the comments from everybody. One of the comments was, well, a lot of it has been about the collecting information from the community. And I love the idea of the Brookline Community Foundation taking the lead on that and then getting a lot of different groups involved. So I just wanted to mention, I've been working on a SurveyMonkey survey that could be either sent to people or actually maybe volunteers could go in and talk with people who are typically not, whose voices are typically not heard enough. And so, for example, residents of the Brookline Housing Authority, we would like to make sure that their voices are really heard in this. They have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. And so I've been working on this with two groups, Brookline for Racial Justice and Equity, Bridge, and Building a Better Brookline, BAB. And we've been working together on this. And so I put in the chat a link to the current version of the draft survey, and just for anybody to look at and to get back to me. I'll put in my email address here too, but for anyone who's interested to get back to me, and I'd be happy to talk with people about where we are, what we're doing, and how this can fit in with the broader effort, and especially with the effort of the Brookline Community Foundation to have a appropriately strategic approach to gathering or to getting engagement from the community. So, and I'm open to any questions if anybody has any questions now.
So Paul has put into the chat a link to the draft SurveyMonkey, to the survey, I guess, draft survey, SurveyMonkey survey. Anybody can download it and follow up on it directly. And we thank you very much for your, not just your comments, but the efforts that you and others are making to make this a very inclusive process with good, effective, I hope, broad public outreach. Any other comments from folks? We're just getting to the point of ready to wind down.
This is Kaya, sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
You can't see everything, so.
Right.
The Commission for Diversity has a community engagement subcommittee that has, I saw in the comments, someone was asking about a list, not only of town entities, but also community groups. And we have compiled a huge list. Carolina works very closely with the work that we're doing. We're trying to, sorry, I'm having trouble saying the right thing, work a little bit on departments right now, but we've made contacts with a lot of these major organizations in town, and they've come and critiqued our plan. I'm not sure it's up on any kind of website yet, but that's part of the whole thing with this open budget type of thing. And yes, getting these more diverse voices heard, of course, is incredibly important. We have to make them feel that actually they're going to be listened to, because if they have the experience that they've had in the past, a lot of them feel like, who cares what I have to say? So hopefully we can do something about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Kaya. And I think we certainly, as the League, hope to work with Carolina and Debbie Miller and others in any form of outreach. And as I said earlier, we would be very pleased as things start to coalesce to plan to offer one of our events. Could be an update on where things stand around the time that the information is being presented to the select board. Could be just after that, when it's all been put together in a formal, or I guess I'm going to say organized. Formal is not quite the right word, but anyway, we'd be very pleased to be able to give hold another discussion group where we can update people on the status, and continue to do that as the proposals are developed and the decisions are made about how the funding will be directed. So thank everybody for being with us this morning. And I hope we now understand a little better how to use OpenGov, and the fact that there is going to be an actual way to track how proposals are submitted and decisions are being made for the use of the ARPA funds. And I would hope that, to the extent that folks who are in our group today are connected, and we'll link up with other groups to let everybody else know where to go. This is being recorded, and probably sometime next week will be posted on Big, so that the presentation that was made initially will be broadly available, and people who have joined us can share that when it's available for the public. So others will have access to the comments about how to use OpenGov. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate your being with us, and we look forward to seeing you again sometime.